I was watching an interview of Rick Rubin recently, and he's this guy that, he helped find the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he's managed people like Jay-Z and AC/DC, Black Sabbath, like all these huge bands. And yet he knows nothing about um, how to mix music. He can't use a mix table. He can't play instruments. He is just an ordinary guy that does extraordinary things. And he accredits most of his success to meditation, but you'll also find with him is that he focuses on the things that make him great, which are simply just being authentic to himself. And authenticity has been lost over the last several years. And I think a lot of that has to do with how much pressure all of us are on, how much suffering there is in the world. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, is that suffering is guaranteed. If you're alive and you're breathing, you're going to suffer within this lifetime. However, how we respond to that suffering is really what makes us what we are, makes us authentic. And I'm a huge believer, like I've had some of the worst things in my life that have happened to me have ended up becoming the best things that ever happened to me. In the moment, and maybe even for several years afterwards, it seems like it's not helping in any way. However, the more I go through things that are challenging or terrible, even, or suffering of some sort, the more I realize that those pay off in some way for me. They help me in a way. I think that saying everything happens for a reason is true. I just think that most people don't see it that way. And I didn't see it for a long time like that. My mom died when I was very young, in my 20s. And I just saw no way forward from that. I saw no possibility of being able to move forward from her death. She was the most important person in my life, and in some ways still is today. But out of that came this ability to communicate with her at a deeper level than I ever would have had she been still living today. I attempted to take my life at one point and almost succeeded. And that terrible thing ended up turning into where I'm at now, where I'm super happy, man. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. I appreciate life for what it is. I recognize that life is a journey, a simple journey where you're just enjoying the moment that you're in. And that really has changed everything about the way that I do things. And so I think that level, the way that I view things, has a lot to do with how I live. And I'll just kind of leave with one story. So there's a Chinese allegory. Alan Watts used to use this all the time. And it's about this Chinese farmer, and he's out farming one day, and one of his horses escapes and breaks through the fence. And so everyone in the town comes and they gather around him and they say, hey, how terrible this is. And the farmer goes, maybe. And then the next day, this horse that left comes back with all these other wild horses. And so they've gained 5 or 6 new wild horses. And the town comes and they're like, oh, this is such great news, like, congratulations. And the farmer's like, maybe. And then the next day, his son is trying to break one of these new horses and falls off and breaks his own leg. And the town comes around again and they say, oh, this is terrible news. And the farmer says, maybe. And then and then the government comes by the next day to take any young men to war. So anybody that is younger. and they don't take his son because his son has a broken leg. And the town comes around again and they say, "Oh, isn't it so great you get to spend all this extra time with your son?" And he's like, "Maybe." And so the joke is found on that, right? Like, uh, it's a funny story, but it helps to really show us the way, is that what we might think is great could be terrible for us the next day. And what we think is terrible could end up being great. So why worry about all of the things that are happening to us, good or bad? Because at the end of the day, we don't even know how it's going to turn out. The best that we can do, I mean, the best that I can do, for example, is to just show up every day for life, enjoy the best that I can. When things are going wrong, try not to freak out. Try to realize that something good will come. And when things are going really well, try not to get too high so that I crash and burn if it doesn't turn out right. That's the simple truth. All life is suffering. Buddha talked about that. All life is suffering. But it's how we approach it. It's what we do with it. It's the realization that I don't have to attach myself to suffering. Just because we suffer doesn't mean it has to have any long-term negative impact on me. And that is a mind-blowing concept if you've never heard it before. Have a great day. Hope to see you on the next video.